Hello, everyone. I feel called to talk about something very significant, something that touches every person deep in the heart, deep in the soul, touches the pain within each of us. And it's about trauma that is formed during childhood. I want to share some reflections on this and also give a practice that may help some of you. Now, before you listen to this, you have to ask yourself if you're ready to face this, because many are not. And the practice, the guided practice I'll give at the end of this video goes quite deep and could be very painful for many of you, actually. So you have to ask yourself if you're ready to give up yourself, give up your false persona, give up your false sense of identification of who you think you are. And it may sound simple, but when we practice that directly, it can be quite scary because we realize things that we had inside us that we unconsciously defended for many years because of very intimate and personal reasons. So, yes, most people are not ready for that. And, well, if you are, then that's great. And the reward, of course, is peace, discovering who you are and discovering who you are not. So, it takes courage, honesty, and humility, especially to actually undertake what I'm going to discuss here in this video. Now, whether you've thought about childhood trauma or not, or whether you believe that you have it or not, the truth is everyone has it, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. It's so deeply ingrained in all of us that every day each of us expresses ourselves from these unconscious parts that we do not see or understand. Everyone has it because everyone has ego. Childhood trauma is simply ego that was first formed during the first years. And you may have heard this already, that when we want to overcome certain egos, we need to investigate when they were formed, when they were first formed. And in many cases, we can trace them back to our childhood. So in this way, childhood trauma, it isn't just an excuse for more sad self-identification with our life story. It isn't a life sentence. It's not something to be identified with. It's an invitation to grow, to awaken, to reclaim your essence, your consciousness. Retrospection is the key to unlocking that door, unlocking the treasures of consciousness trapped in them. It is part of our life's purpose to discover that. Many try looking for external life purpose, right, without going through the prerequisite of processing their internal life challenges first. So this is what we need to do first, and it is our purpose. If we do not process that first, it's very hard to find your talents, your purposes on an external level. In this way, childhood trauma weaves itself into our identity, shaping how we think, feel, and behave until we consciously face it. By observing and understanding our trauma, we stop feeding the egos tied to those past unconscious psychological patterns. Okay, and as we become aware of those egos tied to our childhood, many things start to dissolve. Shame dissolves, anger dissolves, anxiety dissolves. And in that space, our true self emerges, free, clear, authentic, conscious. Now, to keep things more practical, because we'll have a practice at the end, if you would like to join, I feel it's important to kind of have these disclaimers. I feel it's important to transmit a few things, some understanding about this. To transmit that what we are doing here, discovering our childhood defects, is very unique to each individual, and it is very personal. But it is very important not to take any of what we discover internally in a personal way. Although each person's life is unique to everyone, you have to understand that this experience of processing trauma, especially childhood trauma, is universal for everyone, for all of humanity. This is something that everyone has to go through if they want to know themselves. Nobody is a special exception. Even when a person seemingly has a good upbringing with a good family, good community and everything, the truth is that for a child to be born into this world, no matter what the circumstances, is a very scary thing. That already is a trauma in itself. To come to this world where darkness prevails. It's why babies cry, right? To come to this world where you know nothing, you don't know anything. It's just darkness. You don't know how your life will play out. Will you live? Will you die? And so we have these unconscious psychological defense mechanisms that turn into darkness within us, and we don't understand ourselves. We just act out of fear mechanically. Is there going to be danger? Is there going to be safety, etc.? As a child, we sense these fears and these pains, and I believe we sense them, or we sense what we will go through as we grow older into our adult life. And this is because a child is physically and symbolically the pure essence. It is our unadulterated consciousness. And in that sense, we still carry our inner child within us. The Christ said, "Become like little children if you want to enter the kingdom." Almost everyone today is trying to be something that they are not, ambitious to be the idea of an adult, all the while carrying an inner child that never became conscious of itself, never grew, never matured. But our external ambitions and actions and choices are essentially, if we're not doing this inner work, all those choices and external actions are essentially distraction away from that pending homework we have to face internally about processing our trauma, right? So this is why I've made this video. Many people are wondering how to do this. And so here is what I can offer in this video. So if we really want to grow, we have to look within, right? And ask, who am I? Okay. When a person has not intimately reflected on the life that they have lived, especially if they have not retrospected on their childhood, it's very difficult for a person to advance in the work on the ego. And not just in that, but in many aspects of life. Every thought, desire, emotion, relationship will be conditioned by it in some way. So I'm saying all this so we know the importance of it. why to do it, and in what ways to proceed. We can't underestimate this. When we're reflecting on our childhood, we need to understand that we are not just reflecting on mere memories, but we are getting in touch directly with our essence by investigating the clues which are in our memories, where our soul, our consciousness has been trapped in along the way. So before you begin to really get into any proper ego work, first know yourself. I would say that this is the prerequisite first. Childhood traumas, look there first, right? We need to know ourselves first, not just the result of who we are today, but the causes of our beginnings. Because at the beginning of your life is the psychological orchestration of your soul that is reflected in the external circumstances, your karma, the family, the relationships, the situations, the dramas. Everything is there. And many things are formed in those years. Some people make the mistake of thinking that their life was okay, that they don't have much trauma. Some people don't even have any clue about it. As many viewers here would know that spiritual awakening is kind of a traumatic thing, not a nice thing, right? To wake up to reality and to the very hard truths that we have to face. They're very difficult externally. Imagine what it's like to authentically do it internally, to see the reality of who we are and how we have unconsciously made a mess of our lives. Yes. And of course, we are not seeking to blame the external life, parents or society or anything like that. That's very important to understand. We're all responsible for ourselves, especially in this work, if we really want to do this inner work. Okay. For people that may believe that they don't have trauma, okay, sure, maybe. And in that sense, I don't think we even need to call this trauma. We can just call it knowing yourself, self-knowledge. Because no matter, whether you had a good life or a bad life, there will be aspects of your ego that you need to know, that you need to understand intimately. Because in those cases, your consciousness is still asleep, and you need to know why. If you want to awaken, of course, if you want to walk this path, if you're ready for that. So, I've met many people who have had seemingly no problems, a perfect life, we could say, but they lack in many ways that make them suffer. They suffer in ways that they're not aware of quite yet, or fully conscious of at least. For example, maybe they were not taught the true darkness and injustices of the world, and their parents gave them a limited worldview, becoming maybe a naive person or someone ignorant of others' misfortunes. Other people, maybe they were too dependent on other people, maybe too independent. Perhaps some people were overprotected, and this made them vulnerable or scared of the world. Perhaps others were neglected, betrayed, mocked. They didn't form any secure attachments, so maybe they became distrusting, cynical, skeptical, doubtful, etc. Other people may have internalized expectations or pressures, fear of failure, etc. Or just other unspoken emotional dynamics that lead to other kinds of subtle traumas. Okay, so there are many complex examples, many that we do not have the words for when they are discovered internally directly. Some are just required for us to see, and that's all. See it, and through discovering it, through awareness of it, if you are really centered in your mind and emotions and aligned perfectly in meditation, then that's already the best thing. You have to find the main themes and characteristics about yourself for yourself. The things that make you you, and see it. That's the first thing. Become aware. And with that awareness, gradually through your life, if you are walking the path, you will comprehend gradually, and you can make decisive changes in order to dissolve those psychological patterns. Okay, so this type of work is not just a mental visualization exercise. It is more of an emotional retrospection, an emotional journey. You need to observe the emotions within you and to be the essence that you were as a child. And if you've never faced anything like this before internally, well, most people need a lot of courage, as I said in the beginning, and maybe a box of tissues too. Now, ideally, you are fully connected to your being in this kind of meditation, and you are fully detached and not identified. But for most people, especially in the beginning, or if they've not done this anymore, this can be very emotional and maybe psychologically shocking if one is ready for it. Most people aren't ready. So just be aware of the potential for that. It's okay to get emotional, right? But be aware of the potential to be pulled, the pull or temptation towards identification with the ego. For example, perhaps an ego of self-pity, poor me, making another story above it, right? Our aim here is not to reinforce trauma, but to shed light on it, the light of awareness. If you start reinforcing it, well, you've broken the meditation, you've broken the practice, the concentration. Try again another day. So you have to be very strong and persevere in order to really comprehend everything objectively, as though you are a psychologist examining a patient. Okay, that's all. The difficult part is understanding the emotions that you may discover without being consumed by them. And, well, that's up to each person's inner strength and skill in meditation. I remember when I first consciously looked back at my life when I was 14. I had just gotten into a relationship, too young for that, I know, but it relates to my trauma too. And, she asked me about my childhood. I thought about it, and I quickly just cried like a big baby. Now, it might not be the same experience for everyone, okay? Maybe some people's trauma is that they suppress their emotions, and now they can't even connect to their emotions, okay? Maybe. Some people don't realize how difficult their childhood was until they look back at it too. But yes, in my case, my childhood was quite difficult. Now that could be another ego of self-pity talking, because almost everyone feels they were a victim in some way in their childhood, but comparatively speaking, mine was difficult. I had to deal with egos of insecurity, inadequacy, loneliness, egos of a need for validation, being overly independent, egos of rebelliousness, being a people pleaser, melancholy, depression, addictions, etc. Many more. What you have to understand is that anyone who is truly advanced in the spiritual work, in the psychological work of dissolving all the darkness, all of the ego, is not free from ego, but in fact, they are very aware of it constantly every day. A person who is advanced in self-observation and self-knowledge sees many egos every day and are actively working against them, okay? And of course, this eventually leads to liberation, gradually though, with infinite patience. This is what in Christian terms is called carrying your cross. One day you will take your cross, plant it in the ground, and burn it. INRI, ignis natura renovator integram. Fire incessantly renews our nature. This great event happens at the moment of death, and the ultimate death of one's egos goes with it too, if one has earned it. Okay, so since we're talking more mystically now, let us go into this practice, which for this specific practice, you need to have a sense of mysticism too, and a sense of spontaneity. It is not just logical and systematic. It is an emotional communion in the depths of your soul and your internal worlds. Okay, so remember, no judgment, no identification. Identify with your inner being, which is not anything to do with your egos. Okay, to be clear, I'm going to guide you here through this, but understand me guiding you like this, although you may discover something now, doing it in this way is also limited. You have to continue in your own time, in your own meditation, at your own rhythm, following your own being. You can also do it before sleep too. If you do, you may also discover some childhood egos more intimately in dreams. Okay. So let me give you a basic outline as to how this will go. For some, this outline that I'll explain will be enough for you to do it on your own, and you don't need to listen to the guided meditation. For others, you'll want to listen along to the guided practice, okay? This specific technique here is more mystical in the sense that any revelations that arise will be more spontaneous and natural, asking and trusting our being and our intuition to give us the correct memories to look at first. Okay. In other videos, you may have seen other techniques that teach us to go from our life here and now backwards towards our earliest memories. You can do that also in your own time if you wish to do so, but here we will do something different. Okay, so to outline the basic steps that we will go through, or the basic experience, we first start with deep relaxation and conscious breathing, as we should all do before any meditation practice. And when we are ready, when we are in a deep state of being, communing with ourselves, we ask divinity to show us what we need to know. We ask our consciousness. We ask to be shown what we need to know during our retrospection. Okay, there needs to be a level of mystical understanding of the intelligence of the imagination. Okay, and then at first we will begin to see our childhood. Any first core childhood memories that come to mind are fine, and start looking at the projector of the mind. And as you are watching, identify your younger child self as your essence, as your consciousness, as the more pure you. But, we're trying to identify when that pure consciousness fell into these entrapments of the ego, okay? And to get these memories more active, we will first look at some good, joyful, happy and positive childhood memories, things that made you feel loved, supported, protected. And then we will begin to see some bad, unhappy, painful childhood memories, traumas, right? The first signs of our egos and when they were formed. We don't choose any in particular, although you may, okay? Maybe you have a very, very significant and strong traumatic experiences that are very obvious for you to follow. But generally, we let the imagination and our intuition guide us. And we do that courageously, following our heart. And then we investigate how these traumas developed and grew into particular egos as we grew older. And then I will be giving many deep self-inquiring questions, such as, how did this affect my life? What mistakes did I make because of it? And how did it form in the future? Okay, there are many questions that should be helpful, hopefully. So we have to examine when certain negative egos first began, so that we can connect to the root of them, our ego's birth, right? But without blaming circumstances, society, culture, our parents, okay? Because it's very easy to do that. My mother or father were absent, or they didn't do a good job as I wish they did, or it's very important to avoid that. This is only about yourself and taking responsibility for your own consciousness. If we want the death of ego, we have to understand its birth, and its birth only comes from us and our own resistance to life, nothing else. Okay? And I won't say when the meditation finishes. I will just end it in silence in case you'd like to continue on your own. Just be sure to turn off the autoplay feature on YouTube so another video doesn't play when you're finished, okay? And maybe share some experiences with us in the comments. Others may benefit from some examples, perhaps. Like I said earlier, we all have essentially the same experience as a pure child essence, a child with pure consciousness coming into this world of darkness. And perhaps any examples you share might help others in similar psychological situations. Okay, so let us begin. Again, this will be a relatively short meditation, so you should continue it for longer in your own time. It may take several sessions for you to really be able to face certain memories from different perspectives that you wouldn't usually have, so that you can extract new insights for yourself. Okay, so let us begin. Okay. Relax your body with the intention of not moving it during this meditation, so that the physical senses, the physical body is not distracting during meditation. Close your eyes with the intention of preparing the imagination, and still the mind with the intention of perfect concentration. Take some deep breaths. Inhale. Retain the breath for a little bit, and exhale. Again, inhaling, exhaling, relaxing, becoming more still and more serene with each breath. Connect to the stillness of your being, feeling the external world coming to a stillness, and your internal world coming to a stillness. Enjoying this sense of peace and centeredness, feeling ready to dive into the imagination. The imagination as the creative intelligence of your being. Our imagination will be the projector that casts images and memories for us to investigate. We ask our being now, in this sacred space of our internal world, to show us the memories of our childhood, to teach us through our consciousness about the significant events of our childhood. We ask our being to help us comprehend and dissolve the egos tied to our trauma, to help us know ourselves more intimately, why we think and feel and react and suffer the way we do today. Connect to your heart, connect to the force of love, the force of love which derives from the power of your consciousness. Connect to the great reality, so that its light, a superior light, can shine on our past experiences and reveal the conditioning hidden in them. With this trust of our inner being, let us first see in the projector of our mind some joyful memories. Just let them come very gently. Don't try to force anything. Let us see some happy moments from our childhood. Loving moments where we felt secure, we felt safe, we felt happy. As you dive into these memories, look at the relationships you had, your surroundings, your childhood bedroom, your toys, your routine back then. And especially how all of this made you feel. Now, let us move the projector towards some painful, hurtful, sad, angry, difficult memories. What comes to mind the most for you? What stands out? Even if you don't understand why yet, there's probably something there if a particular memory is standing out. Now, whichever memory comes to you, focus on it more. Just trust your gut to choose the right one. Any will do. But once you find it, focus on it. And now, relive it more intimately, slowly. But this time, as a conscious observer. You already lived through it once. No need to relive it again. But you are going through the experience as a conscious observer. Be in that experience again, but consciously. What did you see? What did you feel? What did you think? And as you're going through this now, through this inner journey, I will ask some questions for you here, for you to reflect on as you continue to immerse yourself into those memories. If there are other memories that appear as we continue, that's okay. They probably relate. As you go through these particular painful childhood memories, listen to these self-inquiry questions. How do you really feel in these memories? Try not to answer intellectually. Concentrate and feel it. Empathizing with this child that you see and feel and live through. How do you really feel in these memories? Were you sad? Upset? Did you perhaps suppress some sadness? If you could cry in those moments, what would you have cried about? Was there anger? Frustration? What egos can you identify that may have been formed into adulthood? How have these experiences shaped your current behaviors and reactions today? How you relate to situations and people? What judgments or criticisms did you internalize about yourself as a result of these events? How do those judgments still affect you? Among these experiences, behaviors, and emotions, can you identify what egos you need to let go of now? What emotions, such as anger, fear, or sadness, do you notice are still unresolved from these memories? Where do you feel these emotions in your body? What is the heaviest emotion that you still carry from your childhood or the memories that you're going through? Where do you feel it in your body? What did you learn about love, trust, and safety from these experiences? If you could speak to the child that you were during these moments, what would you say to them to bring understanding, healing, and peace? If love could heal that child's pain, what would it feel like to let that love in right now? Can you envision yourself releasing the weight of these memories, allowing them to dissolve into peace, leaving only the lessons behind? What would that feel like?